Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Minty Minutes, this podcast I've been doing for the past couple of months where I just talk about random movies and TV series and also video games sometimes and books sometimes as well that I have been just enjoying over the past month or so that I didn't really have a chance to talk about in any other videos just because long-form videos are long and take time to make, and I have hardly any time given life in general. And also I will say this past month has been quite hectic in life in general due to various reasons that I don't really need to get into. It's just life stuff. Everything's fine. It's just been a bit hectic overall this past month. However, this is also going to be a packed episode of things to talk about that I'm going to try and keep under an hour, but we know how I am at this point with talking about things in general. So let's just get started. We got at least 5 things to talk about here, technically speaking. 4 if you want to count 2 of them as like one subject, which I will get into first, and you'll see on the screen already the topics here as well. So let's just start talking about the first things, and this is more of like a wrap-up from last month's episode of Minty Minutes, where I only had 2 things to talk about, which were the Netflix Avatar adaptation and the Percy Jackson Disney Plus adaptation. Well, I finished watching them. I have finished watching both the series by the time of this recording, obviously. I actually finished watching them, I believe, last week. Sometime last week I finished watching them by the time of this recording, obviously. And I'd hear my thoughts on them. I want to try and stay spoiler-free for the most part with all of these, especially with Avatar and Percy Jackson, just because they are on streaming and you can watch them and they're still relatively recent for the most part, but at the same time as like Netflix and Avatar and Percy Jackson, if you've already been spoiled for the stuff, you've already been spoiled at this point because they have been out for at least a few months, but I still want to try and stay at least relatively spoiler-free for the most part. So this is my thoughts on them. Let's talk about Percy Jackson first, just to get that out of the way, because it's the one I gotta talk about the least, pretty much. So Percy Jackson, by the end of it, I'd already said that I wasn't necessarily feeling the vibes of it by the halfway point. I will say by the end of it, I think I ultimately liked it enough, and I thought it was a good enough adaptation of the first book. And the only real issue I had with it, well, I had a couple issues with it, to bring it to about, I'd say probably like a 6.5-ish, maybe 7-ish rating-wise, maybe probably 6.5-ish. My main issues with the show, and I will talk about the positives too, but my main issues with the show are it felt really rushed. Like there were a lot of story beats that just felt extremely rushed, which that's an issue just with Disney Plus series in general, where for some reason they're on streaming but they only give the episodes half hour to do stuff, or maybe 35 minutes to do stuff, with only a few having 40 minutes. And it's like, you're on streaming, you don't have to worry about commercial breaks, though they also put in like spots for commercial breaks too, which is also very strange and weird. But again, Disney Plus is strange when it comes to streaming shows. But Percy Jackson, I thought one of the big things was the stories themselves felt fairly rushed in what they were doing. However, there were also certain points where the stories felt like they were really dragging on for a while. And I don't exactly know what was the cause of it or anything, other than obviously the runtime for these episodes was kind of all over the place and not in a good way at all. So some of the story beats from the book, like I can understand skipping over some parts, like that is 100% understandable. With how short the books are and how, I don't want to say not detailed the books are, because the books are very detailed. Again, Rick Riordan is a great writer of these stories, and also he was the one like working on this show as well, so everything had to get signed off by him, and he signed off on everything and was trying to make this like a definitive version. So that's again the other strange thing, but that's neither here nor there for right now at least. But like skipping over some of the story beats, some of the plot beats from the book, fine, it's an adaptation, it's okay, I'm okay with that. But then like some of the stuff they focus on a little bit, I'm like, okay, that's kind of like, you don't really necessarily need to focus on this stuff that much, but it's fine, it's still fine. And then there's just other parts where it's like, wow, they're just skipping over everything here, aren't they? A lot of this was really felt in episode number 7. And this is a little bit of spoilers, but if you've read the book, you kind of know what happens in this section, where they finally get to Los Angeles and they get to and they get to the underworld, where it's like they kind of skipped over a lot of stuff before they get into the underworld, and it's like, ooh, okay. And then the whole underworld stuff is like, oh, okay, this feels like it's really dragging on at this point. There is some fun stuff in there, though. There's some definite fun stuff, for sure. But that's mainly the big issue with that. The other issue is just some of the actual changes that were made from the original source material to the adaptation. And my whole thing about adaptations, and I'll definitely get into this with Avatar, 100%, I will talk about this, but my thing about adaptations is I am completely A-okay. I'm completely 100% fine with them changing stuff from the source material, as long as the changes make sense with the new narrative they're telling. And that's fine, and that's completely fine. I'm cool with adaptations, I am cool with that stuff, as long as the stories fit still, and the adaptations still feel like the source material in essence. And for the most part, yes, the adaptation works. It does work as an adaptation, and the show does still feel like Percy Jackson. That is the good thing. However, some of the changes, especially the biggest one at the end, which I will not spoil here, it just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense for how the rest of this series in book-wise goes, or how the rest of the series, the story-wise, is supposed to play out. I don't necessarily understand why the changes were made the way they were, because it really muddles and confuses what is supposed to happen in the next couple of stories. Because it definitely seems like that each season, hopefully they're going to get at least 5 seasons, because 5 seasons would be the main book series. Before it gets to Heroes and Loves or anything, it would be the main 5-book series of Lightning Thief, Sea of Monsters, Titan's Curse, Battle Labyrinth, and then Last Olympian. So it'll be those 5. Hopefully they get the 5 seasons to do those 5. But with how they ended season 1 of Lightning Thief, going into Sea of Monsters is a little awkward. Just a little bit, given what happens in Sea of Monsters. The other thing as well is just some of the characters just weren't interesting, and that's a writing issue, and that's also a directing issue as well. The main one, and this is so unfortunate, is I did not like Grover at all in this series, but especially by the end, I did not like Grover at all. I felt like he had nothing at all to do, and was also doing nothing. Like, he was mainly just there as an exposition dump for the most part, and he got zero characterization other than he's just kind of there. He's a satyr. He's okay, I guess. And there was one really good scene, though. There was one very, very good scene between him and Adam Copeland, who played Ares, in episode 5. That was really good. Really, really good. We got a lot of good stuff from him there. But beyond that, Grover just was nothing. He just felt like nothing in the show, which really sucks, because I really like the character of Grover. And this is nothing on the actor as well. Aran Simhadri was great. I thought he was great as Grover. It's just the stuff he was given wasn't good. And that's the thing I'm just going to say right now about both these adaptations for this and Avatar as well, is any issues I have with the characters are not on the actors. It is on the characters, how they're written and how they're directed. It is nothing on the actors. The actors were doing the best they can with what they had. Same thing with Lee Jeffries as Annabeth. I just thought Annabeth was a little emotionless, and she just needed to have just a little more emotion to her. That's it. That's all of it that was there. She was a good Annabeth, though, especially by the end. She was a very good Annabeth. I really liked her as well. And then Walker Scoble, I think, was a really good Percy. I think, honestly, overall, he was a great choice for Percy. I think he fit the character of Percy. I just kind of wished he was directed a little better, and he had just a little more childlike wonder to him. A lot of the series just felt really dour and felt really serious, and it's like, come on, guys, this is an adventure. This is 3 kids going on a big Greek mythological adventure. You can be a little fun with this, but everything just felt so serious. which again is weird, especially given the fact that my favorite episode of the whole thing was episode 5, where we got Ares. And I'm not saying that Ares is my favorite character just because he was played by Adam Copeland, formerly known as Edge from WWE, now in AEW, because he's a professional wrestler, and I love Adam Copeland as a professional wrestler. But he was great as Ares. He was awesome. I also thought he had the most fun stuff to do in the series. Just the little bit he did do. I thought he was pretty great. So he was cool. But yeah, overall, I thought Percy Jackson in the Olymp in Season 1, I thought it was fine. I thought it was a good enough adaptation. I'm just really interested and kind of confused as to where they're going from here, and excited enough to see the next season and see hopefully the future seasons to see where they go with this, especially next season, if they actually are doing each season as each book, because Sea of Monsters is, I think, my favorite one, though Titan's Curse I just read the other day or the other week is really, really good. Actually, Titan's Curse might be my favorite. Titan's Curse might actually be my favorite. But either way, Sea of Monsters is really, really good. There's a couple of characters in Sea of Monsters I'm very excited for them to actually introduce and to see. But either way, that was my thoughts on Percy Jackson. I thought it was good overall. I thought it was fine overall. And the choices they made in adaptation were kind of weird, but okay enough, but just confusing overall. But that was my thoughts on Percy Jackson. However, the other adaptation that I have to talk about here and just wrap up is the Netflix Avatar one. And I really don't want to spend too long on this one because I could definitely go off on like a full rant about this. And I really don't want to, because I would make this podcast episode way too long, and I don't want to do that. Plus, let's be honest, there's already enough people on this platform that have already talked about this show enough that have given more than likely way better reviews and talks about the series. So, to start off, I want to just say from the get-go, just like I did with Percy Jackson, I'm giving the show roughly a 6 to a 6.5, and I didn't hate it. I did not vehemently hate the show. I thought the show was fine. I thought it was just fine. And I don't think the show ever necessarily warranted why it needed to exist, which is kind of the biggest issue with it. But I thought it was just fine. And the main issues I had overall with the show is that, and this is kind of condensing it down after finally finished watching it, is that I felt the writing of it was really, really bad. Like, the writing was so bad that, and this isn't even like an adaptation thing, this is just the actual writing of the show, was that it felt like it was talking down to the audience at every possible chance, and was also contradicting itself at every possible chance. And that just doesn't make any sense. It felt like there was a writer's room, and that none of those writers who were writing each episode were talking to each other about what they were putting in the episodes. And it really sucks, and it feels very confusing as well. There's one specific scene I will say, it's in episode 3 where we meet Boomy. We meet King Boomy in episode 3 when we get to Omashu. And up to this point, Boomy's very serious, and I'm okay with the change to Boomy. Again, adaptation thing, I'm okay with changes that were made as long as the changes make sense for the given show, or for the given, property, whatever that they're doing. So, we meet Boomy, and Boomy's like really serious now. He's still kind of joking, kind of funny, but he's really serious, and he has a reason behind it. Like, he's been basically at war for the past 100 years and trying to protect his people. Understandable. And he's basically telling Aang the whole time Aang's there, he's telling him, like, Aang, you can't have friends, you can't go have fun, you need to go and, like, fight the Fire Nation, you need to go and everything. However, Aang is literally just there to meet Boomy to then go fight the Fire Nation. Literally the entire time, Boomy is the one holding him up by playing all these weird games with him, and then telling him, Aang, you can't be playing games. It's like, Aang doesn't want to play the games. He wants to go fight the Fire Nation because he's really broody now. Because he went away to get some air and then got stuck in a storm. And that's the other thing as well. Like, some of the characterization again just contradicts everything else they say in the show, which is bad. But yeah, so like the writing just contradicts itself. It's like it will say one thing and then do something completely opposed to it, but then still say the thing it just said is what's going on. And it's like, no, that's not what's happening here. And there is too much exposition in this show. One of the great things about the animated series, and I want to try and not fully compare it to the animated series because that is not a good comparison. It is very much not a good comparison, even though it is the same property. You cannot compare these two series at all. But to compare to the animated series in this one instance, there's a lot of times in the animation where they let scenes breathe and they don't tell you what's going on. Like, the audience themselves have to interpret what's happening, or they figure it out later. They don't just blatantly tell you something as soon as a question is asked. They let the question breathe, and they let the episode breathe, and then they give you an answer later, which is good. That's how storytelling is supposed to go, and it feels rewarding at that point. The main thing I can say for that, without many spoilers, because it happens at the very beginning, is in the animated series, as you all probably know from having watched it or watching my reaction series. You can go ahead and watch that's up in the corner. You can go ahead and watch that now. The first 3 episodes, they condense down to into one episode in the Netflix series. But the first 3 episodes, we get established to the world. We get the whole preamble part said by Katara, being like, what happened in the world, blah blah blah, all yada yada yada. We then meet Katara, meet Sokka, meet Aang, and that's cool. And then we don't know what happened at this point. Like, we don't know what's going on. We know that Aang is probably the last Airbender because he's been referred to as the last Airbender. Also, the show's called The Last Airbender. But we don't know what happened to the Air Nation. Like, we have an idea of what happened based on how people talk about stuff, but we don't know what happened to them. All we know is there was a really big war that happened. Aang went missing, and we're 100 years later. And then by the end of episode 3, we find out what happens. Like, oh, the Fire Nation killed all of the air nomads. Okay, that's really serious. And we find out the same time Aang finds out. And it's like, that's heartbreaking because we're feeling the same thing Aang's feeling. And then by the end of the episode, it moves on. They all kind of move on and accept this, and then move on into the actual story of the show. That doesn't happen in the Netflix series because we see it as an audience. We see the entire genocide of the air nomads, which we really don't need to. That's just overly violent to be overly violent because they're TV-14. They can do that, I guess. And they're really pushing that TV-14 sometimes. It's like, hey, if we need to see someone catch on fire and burn to death, we'll show it. It's like, thanks, Netflix, I guess. But anyway, so in that episode, we get all the same beats, basically, as those 3 episodes from the animation, except we get them all at the same time, basically. And we get Gran just literally saying the opening credits of the show, which is the stupidest thing. But they literally tell Aang, hey, you're the last one. All your people died. And he gives no reaction. But then when he gets to the Southern Air Temple and he sees everyone's dead, he's like, oh my god. And then has the same reaction like in the show. It's like, hold on a second. You were just told this. Like, you didn't react at all. So what's going on here? And that again goes to the contradiction of the writing, which is just bad. It's just really bad. However, on good notes, I do want to say some good notes about this show, because again, I gave it like a 6.5. I didn't hate it. There's just certain things in it where I just I have to critique it because it's just really fundamentally bad writing. But there are some good things. I think the entire cast is great. I think they are all extremely well casted. And the surprise pick of all of them was Commander Zhao. And holy shit. Basically, just holy shit. Commander Zhao. Ken Leung as Commander Zhao was the surprise pick from this entire series. That dude killed it. Absolutely killed it. And the stuff they did with General Zhao Commander Zhao in the Netflix adaptation was so good. He actually felt like a fully fleshed out character, which was more than he did in the animated series, surprisingly. Commander Zhao actually felt like an actual threat and an actual character, and he felt really conniving this time instead of just a guy. So that was really cool. I really love Commander Zhao. Daniel Day Kim as Ozai, phenomenal. He felt like this overbearing, like overly destructive force that was just kind of just like waiting there in the shadows, kind of a thing. He had that presence to him. Some of the stuff he had to say, unfortunately, some of the scripting was not good, but that, again, that's in the script, that's not on him. He just felt really great as Ozai. I think that was really cool. The standout of the main four, or I guess main five, and if we include Iroh as well. I loved Iroh. Paul Sun Hyung Lee as Iroh, I thought was good. He wasn't feeling like Iroh for me most of the time, but he still was great. I think he was the best acted character in the whole thing. If we're counting him as one of the main five, I think he was the best acted of the main five, which obviously he's the most experienced actor of all of them. But I'm waiting a little bit to see more from him in like season 2, season 3, because they were picked up for season 2, season 3, which is cool. So I'm just seeing more. I'm hoping to see more of actual Iroh from him, but I loved him too. I still loved him. However, I think Dallas James Liu as Zuko was the best one. He had major theater kid energy, and he was just delivering on it, and I loved it so much. However, the rest of the three, I felt really bad for because they didn't really get much to do, except for Sokka. I didn't like the changes they made to Sokka in the series, which that's a whole different thing to talk about, but I think he did good what he was given. Aang, Gordon Cormier, they just need to give him better stuff to do, man. They just really need to give him better stuff to do. I thought he was good as Aang for what he was given, but man, they didn't do anything for him to do. And Katara. Kiyohito Tarbell, man, I feel sorry for you, because they ruined Katara in this series. But again, none of that's on none of that's on them. That is all on the writing and the directing. That is not on them. But I thought, basically all that stuff I thought was good. I thought the casting was great. The CG and stuff was pretty good for the most part, and some of the changes they made in adaptation I thought were actually really well done changes. Especially the stuff with the spirit world. They actually brought in some stuff from Korra into the spirit world, and I really liked that as well, kind of bringing it all a little bit together. So there were some definite good things about the series. There's actually one part, episode 6, Mask, when I was actually writing down my like little review part when I was watching it, I actually had no issues with that entire episode. Like, if I want to be nitpicky, I could find some stuff for sure, but like when I was actually watching the episode, I was like, there's nothing I can critique of this episode. This episode's great. And they actually do something in the episode as well that you would think was actually done in the animated series, and it wasn't. And it's like, oh, this is a really welcome change in this one. I really like what they did here. So there's definitely some stuff in the adaptation that I thought was actually really, really good. And then there's a lot of stuff that's like, wow, this is written really, really badly, and it's just contradictory and talking down to the audience and thinking the audience is stupid. And it's like, just don't do that. Like, you can write a smarter show, Netflix. I know you can. Like, I know you can. So that's basically my thoughts on Avatar and Percy Jackson. I talked about that longer than I intended to, but I kind of just had to at this point. So I didn't hate them. I didn't hate either of them. Did not hate either of them. Unfortunately, this is the internet, and if you dislike something even a little bit, that means you hate it. So, yay, I guess I hated it. But I didn't. I really didn't. I thought they were fine, and I will be watching the rest of them, and I'm really just hoping that the creators of both of them kind of take the critiques that people have said about them, and I hope they just, fix them in the coming seasons. And that's just the whole thing. Also, I hope that the main kid cast of both series are able to like hang out a little bit more to get some better on-screen chemistry. And that's just coming from them working together longer, because they all definitely have the charisma outside of the camera. So I just hope they have it on camera in the future. And that's basically it for those ones. Not to talk about them too much more. So now on to actual fun stuff I want to talk about that isn't stuff I talked about last month. So, I was able to watch 2 different movies for this episode today, prior to recording it, and I'm going to start doing this now every week. I'm going to actually start trying to go to my local theater on Fridays and just watch a movie. I'm just going to start doing this because I've done this the past 2 weeks, and it felt really cool to do that. And how my work schedule is, I can kind of arrange my work schedule to be off really early on Fridays and go catch a matinee show. So I'm going to try and do that. So the 2 movies I watched the past 2 weeks actually were Love Lies Bleeding and Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. So I'm going to talk about Love Lies Bleeding first, because that's going to be the one that most of you probably don't really care about too much, because it's an A24 romantic thriller indie movie, which, let's be honest, is completely straight up my alley. As soon as I heard about this movie from a article about movies that debuted at Sundance, I think it was, I was all in, mainly because of the lead two actresses in it and what the movie was about. So this movie is directed by Rose Glass, who I actually need to look up her other movies, because I know I've heard the name before, and I'm guaranteeing you I would love her other movies if I watch them. But it's directed by Rose Glass, and it's led by Kristen Stewart and Katie M. O'Brien. Two actresses that I have fallen in love with over the past couple of years, and I love them so much. Kristen Stewart I kind of have always loved for the most part, and she just got a really bad rap from Twilight, just like Robert Pattinson. And both of them are like, yeah, cool, we were in that. We're gonna go do like actual artistic stuff now and not do Twilight anymore, and just not care about that. So I love Kristen Stewart for that. Also, Kristen Stewart, absolute just like LGBT icon at this point. She is like so great. And then Katie O'Brien. Katie O'Brien, the muscle mommy that I learned about from Star Wars, and I loved her in that. Then she had a small role in Ant-Man Quantumania, which she wasn't in for much, but I loved her in that. And she's like a fairly recent actress. She's like fairly recent into things. And honestly, Love Lies Bleeding, I think, is her star-making role to show that she has the acting ability, she has the acting chops for sure, to do a lot bigger stuff. So I'm really hoping she's able to like get more roles and get more screen time and get just more things to do following this movie. I mean, it is an A24 independent film, so like there might possibly be some eyes on her from this. Just given the fact that A24 is more prestige stuff at this point. Weird prestige stuff, kind of creepy horror prestige stuff, but man, they are prestige stuff though. So like, I'm really hoping this actually is a launching point for Katie O'Brien's like acting career, because she's so good in everything I've seen her in. And Kristen Stewart's just amazing in general. But Love Lies Bleeding, I loved. I absolutely 100% love this movie. From top to bottom, front to back, everything. I love this movie. Everything about it, going into it, I kind of had the feeling I was going to love about it. I mean, it's a romance crime thriller about bodybuilders, about a female bodybuilder, and also just like a crime empire and stuff, and it being A24. So it's like awesome. Also, it takes place, I believe, in the 80s as well, which is like cool. Just random 80s period piece for no reason. Why not? We'll take it. So just like the whole look of the movie was great. The camera angles that were happening at certain times, especially during like the actual gym scenes and like the fitness scenes, I'm like, as someone who has been trying to focus a lot on bettering my health and like going to the gym, working out a bunch just to try and like be more physically active, way more than I have been in my entire life. I really appreciate that, just to show like, yeah, this is actually like really intense stuff, and this is like really important stuff, and kind of also therapeutic as well. So I really liked that feeling as well. And then the love aspect of the romance aspect of it, it was really fast, and it was really like hard and fast, and very very explicit as well for like the first 20 minutes, and then like one or two points in the rest of the movie. But beyond that, the actual like romance aspect of it, I thought was a really good like metaphor or like writing thing to show that both of the lead characters are hiding stuff from their prospective partner, and just using like sex and love to mask that, and just be like, okay, we could talk about this really important thing that we really need to talk about, or we can just go have sex instead. And it's like, I see what they're doing here with this writing. They're not telling each other everything. That's going to blow up in their faces. And I will say it does. It definitely does. But overall, I thought this movie was laid out really well. I thought the thriller aspect of it was really cool, as like this like overarching mystery kept like unraveling and kept unfurling, especially around Kristen Stewart's character of Lou. Her whole backstory and her whole character was really intriguing, and I really loved how they like unraveled her character and her like whole family drama. I thought that was really, really good. Just in general, this movie's good. I really like this movie. If you like artistic independent films led by two really awesome badass LGBTQ women, watch this. Just go watch Love Lies Bleeding. It is rated R. It is quite a hard R, I will say. But man, if you can take that and you can accept that stuff, and you're just here for some artistic independent films and just see films for being films, go watch Love Lies Bleeding if you can. Since it's A24, it'll be on HBO Max soon because it's an independent film. It'll probably take like 45 days and it'll be on HBO Max because they have all the A24 films. But just like watch this movie. It's really, really good. It's so good. Comparing that to the other film I watched of Godzilla x Kong, what a hard transition that was. Godzilla x Kong. So, you know everything I just said about Love Lies Bleeding, how it's like a really awesome, artistic, like, independent film that's like really good and like shows you the best of filmmaking. Godzilla x Kong isn't that, and that's completely fine. That is completely a-okay. As I've mentioned in many other videos before, and in my Skull Island reaction series, which you can watch up in the corner as well, I love kaiju films. I love big monsters. I love Godzilla in general. I've been a lifelong Godzilla fan. I mean, hell, I ended off last year literally going to see Godzilla -1 finally, and goddamn, what a perfect movie that was. Oscar-winning movie now too, as well. So good job, Godzilla -1. You won an Oscar. But Godzilla x Kong is a big, dumb action movie, and that is all it really needs to be. There are some definite issues with the movie. There are some 100% issues with this movie that I won't spoil because the movie is fresh. It just came out this weekend, or this past weekend. I literally saw it, technically speaking, opening day, because I saw it on Friday afternoon. I saw it in one of the first showings, again, because I was able to work my schedule around a little bit. So I saw it in one of the first showings on Friday, and it was a fairly packed theater, too. Like, way more packed than I thought it was going to be for a Friday afternoon at, like, 12:30. But it was a big, dumb action movie, and that's all it really needed to be. But like I said, there were some definite issues with the movie. A lot of the issues came down to some editing choices that were just weird. Some definite story choices that just made no sense in general, other than big monster movie, I guess. There are some definite missed opportunities from like a nostalgia fan perspective, from just Godzilla fandom in general. There's a couple missed opportunities there, but that's nothing really to critique at all. And then just like some of the characters in the movie were just like a little weak, just in general. I don't think the human element of the story was bad or boring. I thought they did what they needed to do with the human element, because that's always a big critique for all the monster movies, especially legendary movies, except for Kong Skull Island. I will fight you on that one. Kong Skull Island, great movie no matter what, from front to back, great movie. But the human element in this one, I thought was fine. I thought it did what it needed to do. I don't think it definitely wasn't as bad as Godzilla vs. Kong, where it's like the whole Millie Bobby Brown relationship thing with her people and like her friends or whatever. I didn't think it was as bad as that, where it's like, this just feels tacked on just to get to Mechagodzilla. And lo and behold, it basically was just tacked on to get to Mechagodzilla. The human element here actually felt necessary, and what I liked a lot of the movie as well is there basically were like 3 different stories happening at one time, where we had technically a story with Godzilla that wasn't that important of a story. It was just Godzilla fighting monsters, and it's like, okay, I'll take it. We had the Kong story, which was like the central story, where it's like, okay, Kong is trying to find his people, and he's feeling lonely, and he's like exploring the hollow earth trying to find his people, and it's like, okay, that's fine. We got Kong here. And then we got the human story of like, the humans are doing stuff. they're following Kong doing stuff because they found out they don't know everything. It's like, okay, that's fair. That's a human story for this type of movie. And yeah, that's basically it. They all like combined at the end, be like, okay, here's the big story going on, and it was fine. The biggest issue with the movie, and this is a writing thing, and this is a problem with honestly a lot of American action movies, comparing it especially with Godzilla, but there's an issue with a lot of big action movies for America for the most part, is that they over explain things and not in the sense, not in the same sense of like exposition, explain things, but they give us way too much information than anybody's asking for. Like, they give us so much unnecessary backstory for stuff that for a movie like this, we don't care. And that is perfectly exemplified with one specific character in this movie of, I think his name was Trapper, played by Dan Stevens. He's the best part of this entire goddamn movie. It's like him and Brian Tyree Henry as Bernie, who is returning from the previous movie, are the two best people in the entire movie because they 100% know the movie they are in. They are in a big dumb action movie and they are living their best life. Their absolute best life. Dan Stevens plays basically a kaiju veterinarian, and there is zero explanation behind his character or anything he does or how he got to there or how he got to do that, and I do not care. Like, I do not care at all because he is just having fun. And then Brian Tyree Henry, Bernie, his whole character is that he's just like this conspiracy theory guy who has like a podcast, ironically enough, who talks about like the monsters and everything, and no one believes him. And he's just having fun because he's like, oh man, I get to see the monsters. I'm here in Hollow Earth getting to look at some stuff. Like, yeah, man, you have some fun. And he and Dan Stevens have some hilarious scenes and some hilarious chemistry against each other. It's great. It is so great. And then the rest of the humans are fine. Like, they're fine. But those two in particular are the ones because, like, you don't need to explain anything from them. Just tell us who they are, tell us a little bit about them, and then just have them be on screen doing stuff. And it's cool. But then, like, all the monster stuff, all like the kaiju stuff, they're like trying to over explain, and it's like, we don't need to know the science or the backstory of these monsters. We really don't. Like, maybe some people do, and that's fine if they do. And if it were a different movie, I would kind of want some of that stuff. Like, I think it's worked in well in Kong Skull Island because no one knows what's happening. And I think it's worked in pretty well in King of the Monsters as well because everyone's trying to figure out what's going on at the same time. But with this, it is kind of an exposition thing, I guess, coming back to that point. But, like, there's a lot of questions that are asked that are then immediately answered, and it's like, no one's even wanting these questions to be asked to begin with. So it's like, it's just one of those unfortunate action movie writing things. I really had fun with it, though, and I really enjoyed it as a Godzilla fan, because, like, it's just big dumb action at the end of the day, and the big dumb action scenes I thought were really fun and really well done. And yeah, Godzilla doesn't move the way Godzilla should in this movie. And you know what? I don't give a shit. I don't care. It's just cool seeing big lizard fight things. And Kong, it's cool seeing big monkey fight things. And man, there's some stuff in here that I'm not going to talk about because it would be major spoilers, but there's some other monsters in this movie that are really cool. And I think it's really cool to see them. And then there's a couple of them that are like, okay, I wish they had done better with them and done more with them, but they didn't, so oh well. And honestly, if this is the end of like the Godzilla Kong franchise and they make movies separately again, I'm okay with that. This felt like a good wrapping up point for some from the story beats from like the past like 3-4 movies. I think if this one did end off being like the end of the movie side of the story, I'm cool with that. Just continue with Skull Island the animated series, continue with Monarch, the Apple TV series, you know, make other series or whatever. I think that's a good way of continuing this universe without it being films that are, you know, a little overly done. You know, if I'm making sense there. So it's a fun movie though. It's really fun. If you just want a good action movie to go like just turn your brain off with and just eat some like overly priced popcorn, go see Godzilla vs. Not Godzilla vs. Kong, that came out 2 years ago. Go see Godzilla X Kong. Just go watch that one, because like it's just big dumb fun. And it looks really good too. I really like the coloration on it. But like the biggest thing as well is like, I don't think Adam Wingart should direct these movies. He directed this one and he directed Godzilla vs. Kong. I think he's fine directing things. I don't think these are the types of movies for him to direct. I would really love it if they brought back Michael Dougherty from King of the Monsters, or if they brought back Jordan Vogt Roberts from Kong Skull Island, or hell, Gareth Edwards from the original Godzilla. If they brought back either of those three to direct another movie, I think it'd be great, because those actually had like some good meaty story bits to it. But that's Godzilla x Kong, big dumb action movie. We get to see Big Monkey fight Big Lizard a little bit, and you get to see them fight other big monsters, and it's pretty great. So it's just big fun. That's all you really need to know. It's big fun. And then the final thing I'm going to talk about today is something that is currently ongoing right now. So I'm only going to be talking about the first couple episodes that have actually been released so far. It is X-Men 97, the new continuation of the 90s X-Men animated series that is currently airing on Disney Plus on every Wednesday. I really wish they were dropping these on Saturday mornings. That'd be so great to do that, just, you know, thematically, because continuation of Saturday morning cartoon, but whatever. X-Men 97. So my history with the X-Men is I love the X-Men. Just in general, I love the X-Men. I was born in 1998, so I completely missed the 90s X-Men. I would see it every once in a while on like the Fox Kids or whatever, paired up with like Spider-Man the Animated Series. I love Spider-Man the Animated Series growing up. That show was awesome. But it'd be sort of like Spider-Man the Animated Series. I watched that a couple times as well. I think there was a couple of others of the 90s Marvel series. I remember the Iron Man one a little bit. I don't remember watching it too much, but I remember a little bit of it. But I remember watching X-Men and watching Spider-Man and being like, these shows are cool. These are really, really cool. And I didn't really get to catch much of X-Men, especially because of how the series was laid out, where it's like, hey, we're going to do like a 5-episode arc here, but you're going to only see like 2 episodes of the arc because of just how weird TV was. But I love them. I love the X-Men. And then the movies came out, and I actually remember watching the movies as a child and being like, yeah, these are cool. I really like the X-Men, because they're like one of my first like real superhero comic book things. I know Batman specifically was like my gateway drug for the most part into comic books, as I feel like most people are. It's either Spider-Man or Batman. But I feel like Batman was for me. But then like the Fox movies came out with X-Men, and I really like them. And then they got the whole First Class reboot, soft reboot, refresh, whatever. And I love those movies so much. I really, really like the First Class movies. I love them so much that I have yet to actually watch Dark Phoenix. No one should watch that movie because it's bad. But either way, I really like First Class, really like Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse exists. That movie exists. But I just love the X-Men in general, and I thought the Fox X-Men stuff, even though they weren't the best movies, I thought they were really fun and entertaining, and I just like the idea of the X-Men. I think the X-Men are such an interesting concept for comic books, where it's like, yeah, you just have mutants, and these mutants can be an allegory for whatever you need them to be, whenever you need them to be that allegory, and it's great, because that's what comic books should be. Comic books should be there to be able to tell stories that you can't necessarily tell in other mediums, and the X-Men are there for that. So anyway, onto the series now. X-Men 97 is badass, and I love it. There's only been 3 episodes so far, but these 3 episodes are so goddamn good. The first episode's particular, and let's be honest, you've all seen everyone talk about this series so far, so I'm just going to gush about some things I really like about this series so far. Cyclops is badass, and this show actually finally did Cyclops right for the first time in 20 years. Somehow, no one's been able to actually understand Scott Summers' Cyclops in 20 years since the original goddamn X-Men cartoon. And it's really bad, because people just hate Cyclops because of all that. They don't hate Cyclops now because they're actually seeing what this dude represents and what this dude means, and he means business. He means business. Cyclops is great, and also people messing up Cyclops isn't comic books. Comic books are basically big in Cyclops right the whole time, for the most part. By the way, Cyclops is cool now. Cyclops is cool. This dude is the leader of the X-Men, and he is shown as the leader of the X-Men, and you believe it. Like, you all believe it. It's like, he is there. He is showing up. He is showing out. He is awesome. Like, there are multiple scenes where this man's just, like, fighting like his Marvel vs. Capcom days. Like, he is using his they actually got his I-beams right. They're force. They're not laser beams. They're just big red punches, basically. But he's using his I-beams to, like, move out of the way of punches and, like, use them to combo on people. This dude's great. Wolverine, kind of a simp, and you know what? It's fine, because that's what he is. Gambit is... I want to talk more about Gambit, but I'm going to censor myself here because I can't, because YouTube would probably demonetize me, even though I'm not monetized at all anyway. Haha, there we go. Gambit is a special case, and if you know, you know, basically, but let's just say that I'm sure that the artist Babs Tarr is having a field day with this character, because I already know she is. Let's just say that for Gambit. Rogue is great. I love Rogue. She's always been one of my favorite X-Men. She's awesome. Jean Grey is also awesome. She's also one of my favorite X-Men. She's really cool and badass. I love Jubilee. She's just a fun little light in everything. She's just great. Bishop's really cool. Like, I'm glad that Bishop's here. He's just awesome. I don't think he gets used nearly enough in anything, so he's just cool. Morph is really, really cool. Morph is just a cameo character at this point, because, like, the dude can just alter his abilities, I guess, and alter his powers, or alter their powers, just to, like, become any other X-Men character. So they're just there to cameo as other characters. Like, there's a point where they turn it whatever, I'm gonna say it. There's a point where they turn like Magic, and then like Psylocke, and then like Colossus right in a row. I'm like, what is going on here? This is cool. This is so cool. Magneto's an absolute daddy. Just saying that right now. Magneto is an absolute daddy in this show. And I am not ashamed to say that. Like, I would bend the knee to that man any day of the week, because my god. Beast is cool. I like how Beast is just kind of nerdy, and he's cool about that. He don't really do much with him, and it doesn't matter. He's all cool. And then, goddamn Storm. Goddamn Storm. My god. They did right by Storm in this series. They really did right by Storm. Storm is an Omega level mutant in general, and they make sure you know it. They make sure you know that she is the strongest person on the X-Men. Like, she is the best one. She is the toughest one. Her, like, not even her her introduction is pretty badass as well, but in the first big fight of the first episode, like the end of the first episode was a big fight, and they call her in, is one of the greatest character introductions I have seen in, like, recent memory. It is so goddamn cool. Like, so awesome. I just want to keep gushing about this series because it's just so good. I have been loving every single moment of X-Men 97. And the best part about it is, as well, it's like, it is a continuation of the 90s series. And I haven't watched much of the 90s series, but I know from people who have watched it that the 90s series was incredibly outspoken about the stories it was telling. Like, it was pushing the envelope as much as it humanly could for a 90s Saturday morning cartoon, and for the stories that they were trying to tell at the time. And even the creators of that series have even gone on record in saying that, like, if they were allowed to say more, they were going to say more. But because they couldn't say more, they had to find the most, like, roundabout, subtle ways of saying what they're trying to say. And they did. Now, has the 90s series completely aged well? Probably not, because it's the 90s. Probably not. Some of the dialogue might be a little bad, but the stories themselves are good. And being able to tell those same stories now in 2024 and having, like, a TV-14 rating, they're using it. Like, they are using it so well. And they are telling the stories that the X-Men need to tell. They're telling stories about diversity. They're telling stories about inclusion. They're telling stories about racism, about fascism, about fighting all that, about just groups of people, about hate groups, and about fighting against hate. And then also about cloning as well. There's a episode 3 about cloning. And about, like, weird family dad issues as well. Like Cyclops, he got some daddy issues. Magneto got some daddy issues because he's just a daddy. He's got issues. I should stop joking like that. But no, this series is great. This series is phenomenal, and, like, go watch this series. Like, new episodes drop every Wednesday. I'm gonna be here watching, like, the whole thing. Like, this thing is great. I love this show. I just love this show so much. And that's basically it. That's gonna be the Minty Minutes, because I can't really say anything else about X-Men without getting into full spoilers for just, like, random, like, things that they've been doing in this series. It's just so good. Just go watch X-Men. Go watch everything I talk about in this Minty Minutes. Just go watch it all. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about all the stuff as well. And that's how I transition into the end of the video. Haha, or into the podcast. There we go. So that's the episode this time for Minty Minutes. Let me know down in the comments below if you've actually watched any of this stuff. What you think about Avatar, the Netflix adaptation, what you think about Percy Jackson, the Disney Plus adaptation. If you actually have watched Love Lies Bleeding, and I would love to actually talk to someone who actually goes and watches independent A24 films. Please be out there in my comment section to tell me about how much you love A24 films. Let me know if you love Godzilla and Kong and big dumb kaiju movies that just show big things fighting each other. Let me know that down in the comments too. And also, if you've watched X-Men and you want to gush about X-Men as well, let me know that down in the comments as well. And if you like this podcast and you want to see more, you want to hear more from me as well and the other videos I do, go ahead and leave a like as well. It helps out, boost up in the algorithm. And I got a whole playlist now of this podcast as well. It's you know, a monthly thing. I'm just doing once a month. You know, I might do more at some point later on, but I'm just trying to do once a month right now at this point, as I'm still figuring out this whole podcast thing in general. But if you like the episode, leave a like. It helps out in the end and help boost it in the algorithm. And if you want to see more from the channel, go ahead and subscribe down below. I don't just do the podcast, I also do reaction videos as well, and I'm trying to do some more long form videos. I know every other month I'm doing a Doctor Who retrospective video, or review spective as I'm calling them as well, because fun names are fun. And I'm also going to try and do some video essays as well later on this year too. I got some stuff planned that I actually need to further plan out and actually, you know, do at this point. But that's where my brain fails me sometimes. But either way, if you want to see more from the channel, go ahead and subscribe down below. And if you want to actually see more, on the screen is going to be a playlist for something else you can watch. Go ahead and watch that as well. And then next to it is going to be a video that YouTube recommends for you as well. And until next time, just stay loving media and stay loving everything you want to love, everyone. And I will see you in the next one. Until then, peace, everyone. Peace.